Hello again. I'm Sam Pampeo with Sotheby's Realty, and I'm here with my good friend Justin Paperny.
Good to be back.
WhiteCollarAdvice.com. In any event, about a month ago, Justin invited me over to do like a little Q&A video with him, and it went pretty well, right? The banner, the friendly banner was good. People liked it.
We got some good feedback.
Okay, so he invited me back to do it again. So here we are, and why don't you explain to the viewers why? Why am I here today?
Sure. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I had a couple of clients of mine who surrendered to Sheridan Federal Prison Camp over the last 8 or 9 days. I just wrote a blog about this. Had hired prison consultants before hiring me. And we talked about the phone, but we're just going to keep going. Okay. These two clients had hired consultants, and they didn't have the best experience. And we're not here to bash them or to overly promote my business, but rather share some things that you should consider if you're going to retain a federal prison consultant. And my two clients who just surrendered to Sheridan came up with a list of items, so to speak, that any defendant should ask for.
You said they surrendered to Sheridan.
Sheridan Federal Prison Camp in Oregon.
In Oregon, okay. So these are questions that you should probably ask. You're interviewing somebody,
Correct.
Right? Makes good sense, right?
Some thoughts, if you're considering hiring a federal prison consultant, and again, I don't want this to be a shameless promotion. My work isn't right for everyone. I've said that. I'm sure there are those who openly critique my work. I'm not here to do that, but rather we want to give you some things to consider, questions to ask if you're going to hire someone.
It's like anything. I'm a realtor. People interview me every day. They ask me questions.
Yeah, when my family and I hired Sam sold me my home
several times.
18 years ago, I found Sam. I hired him. I asked him some questions. I liked the answer, and
here we are.
So it's important to ask good questions.
Let's jump in,
okay?
Because I know you have things to do, and their time is valuable.
You too. You're showing property in 30 minutes. We got it.
Correct. Okay, let's do this. All right. So I think an important question to ask right off the batter. It would be, has the prison consultant that you're looking to hire walked the walk, talk the talk? Have they ever returned to prison? Did they violate their probation?
So again, these are questions that are items that my clients came up with. One of my clients hired a consultant who had been returned to prison, and he didn't disclose that he had violated while on home confinement and been sent back to prison. And my client later said, Justin, I think this is logic 101. If you're going to hire someone to help keep you out of prison or shorten your prison sentence, I think it's important that someone's actually been able to do that, and they themselves have not been returned to prison.
Okay, that's a good question. All right, next question. Have they ever been to federal prison? Do they have actual experience?
So in my other client's case, he had retained a consultant that had not been to federal prison, and it was a former prison guard who retired from the BOP after 30 years with a nice pension, then comes and claims he's going to save prisoners' lives. So I have a big problem with federal prison consultants who have never endured time in federal prison, don't know what it's like to be away from family, to stand for count, to be embarrassed with the humiliating Department of Justice press releases, and they just cannot understand the experience. And frankly, I think they still think like prison guards or staff. So I think anyone that you consider should actually have endured time in federal prison.
That makes sense. That makes absolute sense. I know that you have written books and courses and different things to help keep somebody structured while they're inside. Do you think that that's important, that they have some curriculum, some literature?
I do. Hold up the book.
Oh my gosh! Justice book you read Lessons from Prison was awesome.
So in my experience, look, when I got out of prison, I didn't quite have the process or structure that I have now. I had my experience, and I had my book that I wrote in prison. But now, thank you. But now, many, many years later, I've come to approach this process like preparing for college, as I've said before. So with my clients, I don't get on the phone and say, what do you want to discuss today? Or I'll happily answer your questions about prison. I think any federal prison consultant should have a process, a scope of work, something that you can follow, implement on a daily basis, replete with lesson plans, courses, videos that guide you through each step of the process, rather than being very reactive, which is, what do you want to discuss today?
Right.
So that's the approach that I've been able to implement, and I suggest anyone follow. Whether it's with me or if somebody else does it, great, but you have to have a process.
Yes, I've listened to a couple of phone calls. We're playing golf and phone rings. Of course, Justin takes it on his watch or wherever the call comes in. and you have a real process. You're not like a feel-good guy. You're like, I'm going to show you how to get from here to here.
Yeah.
And there's a process.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good. I've read your books. They're very entertaining.
Thank you.
All right. So what about this?
Entertaining for someone that I guess isn't going to prison, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so what about this? I'll guarantee you a success.
Yeah. So
what does that mean?
I think it's hard to guarantee anything when you're dealing with the Bureau of Prisons. It's a big bureaucracy. They have their systems in place. There are some federal prison consultants who will guarantee you a certain outcome, maybe a guarantee of the drug program, or guarantee you a prison designation. Experience tells me there is no guarantee. Oftentimes they might encourage you to lie or to say things that might not be accurate that can get you into further trouble, like going to the hole, transfer to a higher security prison. So the reason that I don't offer a guarantee is because I actually invest the time. And it wouldn't be fair for me to invest 50, 100, 200 hours with you over the coming years and then you not get a certain outcome. I cannot control how hard you might work, or I cannot control if you're going to actually influence or follow through on everything that I suggest. So some companies offer this coveted guarantee because it might be an easy way for them to close and sell business.
What about like Survive? I've also heard Survival 101. Survive?
So that's another problem. Before I went to federal prison and all the way back in 2008, my mom, I was very much in denial, so I wasn't doing any planning. But my mom came across a website, Prison Preparation, and it was all about Survival 101. And of course, my mom read it, and she was concerned.
Freaked out.
Yeah, it wasn't like she thought I was going to get killed in a federal prison camp. And I had enough going on that I didn't need my mom to be scared into giving some consultant money under the guise that if she doesn't retain them, I'm going to get killed.
You don't survive.
But even now, if you Google life in federal prison, Google federal prison consultants, I think you'll find that approach to securing business of how to survive.
More like a scare tactic.
Yeah, and you shouldn't be scared about what your life is like in prison. You should ensure that you're avoiding the inevitable boredom and that you're having a productive plan and you're being held accountable. So retaining someone because they're going to help you survive is a waste of money and time. Our prison system releases hundreds of thousands of people a year, and they've all survived, including those that come home from the penitentiary in the high, the medium, the low, and certainly a federal prison camp.
Yeah. Let me see. Let's see. Do you have the ability to offer somebody advice on how they can build a career while in prison?
So I think if you're considering a federal prison consultant, it shouldn't just be all about mastering life in prison, but understanding that eventually you're going to come home with a sullied reputation and a felony conviction and probably a Department of Justice press release. So it would be in your interest, before you surrender to prison, while on pretrial, to begin preparing for what it is you'd like to do when you come home. And in many cases, that includes the launching of an online business. I help clients launch their online business, give them the tools, offer some strategies that can enable them to begin to build that business.
Really a long-term view.
And then hone that skill set while in prison. So when you release from prison, you step into something of substance. A lot of people schedule calls with me, and when I mention to them, would you like to grow your business from prison, the first thing they say is, I thought you can't grow a business from prison. Then I actually put them on the phone with clients of mine who actually grew their business from prison, and those clients say, hey, that's the first thing I said to Justin when I spoke with him. So I think it's beyond just prison planning. It's building that business, growing it both before, during, and after prison.
I would think, I certainly would think that wouldn't be my first thought, is how am I going to grow a business upon my release? But what a great idea.
It's usually not your first thought because
you have nothing but time.
We're obsessed about what life in prison is like. I worked with Sam for several years. I used to sit in his office and say, dude, I'm going to jail and these lawyers are so expensive and I'm losing my licenses. It's tough to think about the next phase when you haven't even gone to prison yet. But looking back, I can tell all of you, eventually the end is going to come.
And quickly.
Yes, it gets here. And you find a way to endure and get through it. And either you're ready. Lastly, I'll say a lot of people are obsessed with RDAP, or getting the shortest sentence, and you should be. Or getting the most halfway house time, and you should be. But a lot of prisoners who get that, who aren't ready, come home and they then say, wow, now what? They got the early release, but it's like now what, they're not ready for the next 50 years of their life.
Right.
So you got to work with someone that's going to give you the skill set, who intellectually can help you prepare to create a job despite your felony conviction. From my experience, those are things that I think consultants should do. It might not be right for everyone, and not everyone wants that, and that's cool. These are just things that I think are important.
Yeah, I think it's great.
So.
What about if I were to ask to speak directly to somebody that you've helped and has been there and worked your program and is now out, and maybe even somebody that's really at the beginning stages? Would you let me?
Yes, absolutely. So I think if you're considering a consultant, whomever it might be, you should ask to speak with their clients. Ask if they'd be willing to share some of the benefits that I or any consultant provided. Again, I don't want this to be a shameless self-promotion. But you should feel comfortable speaking with someone to learn exactly how that consultant delivered. So frequently, I have one of my clients that just surrendered to Sheridan. I had a client, good guy, Donnie, surrendered to Pensacola 2 days ago. He spoke with 2 separate clients about the scope of work that I provided. Did we implement it? Was it productive? Was it worthwhile? Was it worth the investment? And after he spoke with them, he called back and said, dude, I'm excited to move forward. So you want to be able to speak to prior clients. Or current clients too. Just speak to someone who can validate what I say I'm going to do, or what any consultant is going to do.
Yeah, which that makes that kind of leads into the next question or set of questions. There were a couple that were similar, which was that you are actually engaging the help of somebody that has worked the plan to success.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And you have.
So I think authenticity is very important. Sam visited me a lot in federal prison, and I would share with him what I was doing. Blogging was very hard. Writing the book was incredibly hard because writing doesn't come naturally for me. But I knew if I wanted to consult, when I began to write lessons from prison, I had no interest in consulting. I just wanted to be authentic and document the journey. My primary goal actually is I hope someday that I'd be a father and I'd be able to, I guess, look back, and my child eventually someday would be able to look back and see what I learned from the experience. That was the motivation of writing the book. And then it just turned out to help defendants going through it. But that aside, I think it's important whomever you hire that can authenticate what they're doing, that isn't going to tell you to do something in prison that they haven't actually done, that isn't going to tell you to write a book or get up or program or exercise if you don't know that they actually did it. So I think that's really important, because you can go to a lot of nice looking websites and they can make promises and claims about what they're going to do. They can guarantee you stuff. And the question is, did they actually do it? And is there evidence that they actually did it?
Well, here's the evidence that I see, and I've known you a very long time. Justin changed himself while in prison. Mm-hmm. You now work a regimen that you didn't before you went in, a life regimen. The way you read, the way you exercise, the way you conduct yourself. Mm-hmm. It's all much.
I would never ask a client to do something that I haven't done. So I'm going to film a separate video about a business that my wife has created at topvideomarketer.com. We're going to talk about that because I'll talk about it in a separate video. When I came home, I began cold walking, and I tell some of my clients, you got a cold call, you got a cold walk, you're building a business, and they'll say, man, cold walking's tough. And I'll say, the first day that I got out of prison, I took my book Lessons from Prison, and I walked into law offices in downtown Los Angeles asking to see lawyers, many of whom kicked me out. But I did it, and I learned from it. So I would never ask anyone to do something that I haven't done or attempted to do. I'm not always successful. And sort of a long, drawn-out answer. I'm sorry. It's just make sure that people can authenticate what they say they're going to do.
You spoke for free. You did more stuff for free to put yourself out there. It was incredible in the beginning.
I was obsessed with, I wanted to rebuild my reputation.
And you did.
Before making money,
all right.
I wanted to rebuild the reputation because I knew opportunities would come. And I had evidence of it.
I've been to your website. You have lots of testimonials, and you include all of the relevant information. Sam Pampeo. You can verify who I am. I'm not some made-up person. These are real testimonials.
A lot of clients, some clients will say, I'd love to give you a testimonial, but I don't want to use my last name, and I tell them respectfully, thank you. They will offer to speak with clients privately, but I only put testimonials on my website that have a first and last name, because, well,
You'd
if
be
not,
able to authenticate it.
yeah, I mean, it's just anyone could go write the most incredible review and put Kevin S, Sam G.
Because it's on the internet, it's true.
Or you just don't. The consultant could have written it, and that
Correct.
happens. I've gotten some emails. Well, that's a whole totally different story. The point is, you want to be able to authenticate the testimonial as legitimate, besides just speaking with clients. Yeah.
This is a good one. We're going to kind of wrap it up.
We're going to wrap it up.
Okay, with this one right here. So, as a prison consultant, first order of business to maybe make nice with your client's attorney. So maybe that attorney sends you additional referral, or do you hold the attorney accountable because your client is really all that matters?
So that is an issue that a couple of years ago I had a client who had previously hired another prison consultant, and that client the prison consultant was also working alongside the lawyer, so it was all three of them. And my client didn't feel as if the lawyer was effective and really working in his best interest, hence part of the reason he hired this prison consultant. And it turned out the prison consultant was aligning his interests really with the lawyer and siding with the lawyer, not really arguing on behalf of the white-collar defendant. And the idea was because this consultant wanted referrals in the future from this lawyer. And I think if you're going to hire a prison consultant, that you have to be able to ensure this consultant is going to help you hold the lawyer accountable. And we touched on it in the last video. I work with a lot of lawyers, but some of them don't love that I'm coming into their domain, their space, and helping a defendant who has never hired a lawyer, who is not by nature a criminal, helping hold that lawyer accountable. Some don't love it. So if you're going to retain a consultant, make sure they have your interest at heart rather than trying to create a relationship with a new lawyer who could send referrals down the road. I've seen too much of that.
That's pretty much it, I think, for today.
I think so. There was one last thing that I want to touch on that I don't even know if it was on that list, but something a client discussed. Prison consulting is very much a writing profession. It is an intellectually stimulating job, as crazy as it seems. I'm just not talking about prison all day. I write on average 50 emails a month for clients to send to their lawyers. And I'd be happy to share some of them with you. Make sure your consultant will share with you how well he writes, can articulate his thoughts and visions when arguing on your behalf to a potential employer, to a probation officer, to a case manager in prison, or to your white-collar defense attorney. I write all day, and it's an intellectually stimulating job.
You're an extremely eloquent writer.
Just get an idea, see some of their writings and how they've actually held lawyers accountable beyond getting scared into prison or whatever it is. It's just, I do more writing than I ever imagined I would as a consultant. Make sure they can write and make sure there's been success as a result of what they've written.
Agreed.
Make sense?
Absolutely.
I actually want to close with one last takeaway. So after I did 2 videos with Sam, I received a number of positive messages, and I'm going to turn this over to Sam to get his thoughts. A defendant sent an email that said, I probably should have the actual email, but I'll summarize. He said, I really appreciate the videos you did with Sam, and I just want you to know I felt like it really humanized you, and that you have a very successful real estate agent. He went to your website, a guy that makes money. He's been selling real estate for 28 years. He has a license, and he's like, it's really cool that he's willing to go on camera with you and talk about prison, and he doesn't feel like it impacts his career or hurts him. What this defendant was getting at was hey, maybe that could be me down the road too. That it's not that bad that people overlook it. So give us some of your thoughts on that.
Well, my thoughts are that sometimes good people make mistakes, and one mistake doesn't necessarily define your character. And certainly, I've known Justin a very long time, and I'm not embarrassed in any way to be connected with Justin, and the fact that he's been to prison I acknowledge openly and have absolutely no problem with it. So I don't know if I don't think I'm unique, to be quite honest. I think I'm pretty normal. I think that's the way most people they're going to evaluate you for what you are now.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's I guess that's a good way to close. So for those of you watching, that message sort of took me, because I'm so close with Sam, or I'm so involved, I don't know what the right word is. I was surprised to read it, but I can understand it. And I am grateful that you despite a thriving career and all you've done, take so much time to help me and support me. And
it's my pleasure. These videos are fun, so I have a good time and informative and interesting too. That's a good comment.
All right, so let's just close with this. In fact, you're the moderator. Close with a plug of my book. Tell them where to go to get it.
Go to Justin's website, whitecollaradvice.com,
yes.
and get his book. It's awesome.
Thank you all very much.
Take care.